clearly. At this time, I'll call this meeting to order, and I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the agenda as written.
Thank you. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, wait just a minute. Peggy Buchanan? Pat Bryant?
Yes.
Amy Churchill?
Yes.
Cindy McMahon?
Aye.
Donna Pate? Max Queen?
Aye.
And Ann Franklin. It's time for the superintendent's comments.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to begin by recognizing all the dedicated efforts that Clark Wyatt and our maintenance department have been making throughout these summer months as we prepare our school buildings for the return of teachers and staff next Monday. If you walk through one of our schools, you will be hard-pressed to travel very far before seeing one of the many signs reminding everyone to habitually follow the 3 W's. Wear a mask, wait out of respect for 6-foot spacing, and wash your hands frequently. Mr. Wyatt has also spent much of his time ordering and gathering countless PPE items, that's personal protection equipment, and safety equipment for students, faculty, and staff to ensure that we have sufficient amounts on hand in our schools. So thank you to that team. And that's certainly not the only district level team that's been very active, but I do want to cite just the tremendous efforts that he and that team have made. Today's STEAM 2020 all-virtual conference once again presented best practices in delivering instruction through technology. A total of 1,188 educators are participating from not only Buncombe County schools, but across multiple states. I think there's even representation internationally, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Over 100 sessions have been scheduled over the next 2 days, focusing on using technology resources for both classroom and remote settings. Today's keynote speaker, Matt Miller's message was to inspire and equip teachers to thrive in this new era of teaching. Thanks to Mr. Pace and his team for facilitating this excellent opportunity for all of us. I want to also recognize a groundbreaking ceremony that took place this past week at Emma Elementary School. The groundbreaking was to allow the beginning construction of a Verner Early Childhood Education Center. And we've talked about this board quite a bit in the past. And this is a crisis area that we spoke about. And I'm so proud that the county recognized as well as a key area of deficiency in our communities, pre-childhood education. That's so important. And so for the Verner company, who's well known to provide the excellent early childhood education, we're so excited. We're so excited for the Emma school community and those parents and children who will grow up soon to be Buncombe County School students. So we're excited about that. An old friend has returned to Buncombe County Schools, and that is Mrs. Christy Cheek. And so I'm honored to announce that tonight. She is the former director of Career Tech Education, and she has left retirement to serve as the new director of the Buncombe County School Foundation. Mrs. Cheek has hit the ground running. How else would you expect Mrs. Cheek to move? And I'm sure we will be seeing more opportunities for partnering with the foundation in the days to come. So we're excited to have her on board. Tomorrow, we will be officially welcoming 133 certified staff members to Buncombe County Schools. These are new staff members. 41 of them are first-year teachers. So what an interesting and challenging time to enter our education profession. We're excited about meeting them and talking with them tomorrow. Regarding our Plan B and beyond schedule, I'll preface my comments by saying that a family-friendly calendar is available on our Return to Learn BCS website. And as all schools will be communicating with families to provide details of their student schedules, I want to note that next week, all students will be invited to participate in a virtual Meet Your Teacher opportunity. Beginning Monday, August 17th, the 39% of our students and families that have chosen remote only through the first semester will begin virtual instruction. For those students that have not opted for the all-remote semester-long commitment, Group A, or half of them, will have the opportunity to attend an abbreviated day in-school session on Monday and Wednesday. That's for Group A. The goal will be to receive from their teacher a foundation to enhance and support the remote learning that's ahead and address any upgrades or issues involving their digital device. As you recall, we allowed our students, after the last 3 months of the school year, we allowed them to take those digital devices home and actually provided some summer enhancement opportunities for them digitally as well. On Tuesday and Thursday, the second half of those students, or Group B, will have the opportunity to be on a remote learning platform. If they are kindergartners, Group B will have the opportunity to attend in-school half-day sessions to receive similar services to Group A. And on Friday, the 21st, all Buncombe County School students will be on a remote learning platform. If they are kindergartners through 8th graders, they will be learning virtually for the next 5 weeks. As you recall, the plan that we presented to you was a 6-week plan. Our high school students that have not committed to the remote-only option will follow a similar schedule as kindergarten through 8th, except they will have the opportunity over the first 2 weeks in Groups A and B to meet on each of the 4 abbreviated days with respectively their first, second, third, and fourth period teachers. All 9th through 12th graders will be instructed on a virtual learning optional platform at least over 4 weeks beginning August 31st. Over the first 2 weeks of onboarding, on any Monday through Thursday, our schools will host approximately 1/3 of the students that would normally be inside our buildings pre-COVID-19. I want to strongly emphasize that whether our buildings are supporting students for onboarding or primarily hosting our teachers and staff as they collaborate to enhance the high quality of remote instruction, all health and safety requirements and mandates will be followed, including temperature checks, facial coverings, spatial distancing, as well as cleaning and sanitation protocol. In closing, I want to add that I participated this afternoon in a Zoom call with our county manager and a number, actually about 60 faith-based leaders across the county. We are asking their help in providing potential support programs for our students as they begin stretches of remote learning. While we will make every effort to provide the highest quality of virtual instruction for each and every student, we realize that a percentage of our learners will thrive on their digital device and another percentage will be highly vulnerable to falling behind without some type of additional support. We will offer to provide staffing to assist training for volunteers that would be willing to serve as digital learning tutors or mentors for our students. Once again, I will encourage our stakeholders to go to our Return to Learn section on our district BCS website. We have devoted space to list, and that is an active list. We continue to add more organizations, potential child care resources in the area that may be of interest to working parents. Likewise, we will be listing digital learning support opportunities in the community as they become available. That concludes my comments, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Baldwin. At this time, it's time for public comment.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Baldwin, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Stacia Harris. I'm the Director of Communications for Buncombe County Schools. I'll be reading the public comments tonight that were sent in via email prior to 3 p.m. today, which was the stated cutoff. 2 other administrators will help me read the comments tonight. In accordance with board policy and normal procedure, each public comment is limited to 3 minutes. Several of the emails contain questions for the board. I will read those comments, but please know that the board does not answer questions during the public comment portion of the meeting. An administrator will follow up with the individuals who sent in questions and provide those answers. From Alyssa Peterson. Hello, everyone. I am an elementary school art teacher in the BCS system, and I'm sending this email to voice my concerns about BCS requiring teachers to teach from brick and mortar schools during Be and Beyond. I'm concerned that although there will not be many students in the schools at this time, the requirement will increase the risk of teachers and staff to risk that could be avoided if we were allowed to choose work from home. In a recent conversation with BCAE, Buncombe County Health Director Dr. Mullendorf said to use universal precautions when interacting with people outside of your family, meaning to treat everyone that we interact with as if they have COVID and can be infectious. It was reported in the ACT 2 days ago that Mission Hospital topped its hospitalization record, and the caseload was up in Buncombe by 250 people over last week. When teachers are working within a school together, we share the ventilation system, we share bathrooms, we share the hallways and copy rooms, and many other common areas. When we see our colleagues, some of us will be tempted to get close, share space, and perhaps even break the 3 Ws protocol. I feel that the main reason for the requirement for teachers to teach from the brick and mortar schools is to make sure we are working and staying on task. I think that you can trust us to be professionals and do the same remote teaching from our own remote homes. Please consider my concerns and allow teachers the choice to work from home during the Be and Beyond remote teaching time. Thank you. Most sincerely, Alyssa Peterson.
Ms. Harris, would you mind removing your mask? I'm having a hard time hearing you. Thank you.
Jennifer Freer-Manis from the Progressive Education Program. I am concerned about the onboarding in-person instruction for a population of students. While the students who are attending this time will be excited to be in the school, it will not resemble school as they remember. Many of their peers will not be present due to medically fragile conditions. Teachers will look as though they are medical staff. Many aspects of attending school that they enjoy will not be part of their schedule. It will also be confusing for students returning due to the remote learning period that will begin after this first week. There's also the undeniable fact of exposure to and transmission of COVID-19. The time plan for students is small, with little benefit, but enough to pose such a large risk to a great number of people. Please re-examine the continually growing number of reports that indicate it is too soon to return in person to school and too great a risk to students, teachers, and staff. A 2-part public comment. The first part is from Christine Kaur. First off, we would like to thank the board and Dr. Baldwin for listening to our public comments today. We appreciate your willingness to hear and take our comments into consideration. Last week, we were happy to hear BCS was revisiting the Plan B decision and did change it to better protect our staff and students. Since that decision was made, many camps have been releasing outbreaks, schools have opened and quickly closed, and schools have been making national news for protocols not being followed, even though they were set in place. As I read all of the articles and hear the news stories, I'm completely terrified to come to school, even for the onboarding period. I would encourage you to change your decision for Plan B Beyond with onboarding to Plan C full virtual. In a large majority of these articles, the students, staff, campers, or workers had been exposed or caught the virus in less than a week or sometimes less than 2 days. I understand your decision was being made to build relationships between students and teachers. However, I am unsure how much of a connection I can make when going near these students could possibly expose me to the virus. Some may say, but we are wearing masks and keeping a 6-foot distance from everyone. Yes, in all actuality, that plan will keep us safer, but not completely safe. We understand it is a layering of the 3 W's that will help us. Let's consider a couple times this can't be followed or monitored. When eating lunch, all students will be in the classroom with masks off. When we have to take mask breaks on rainy days when outside is not possible. When we send students to the bathroom, they may be in an enclosed space with someone else. We can't guarantee students will continue to follow guidelines when we can't see them. This will leave it up to young children from ages 5 to 18 to make the right choice. Others may say, just stay 6 feet away since it takes 15 minutes to contract the virus when you are exposed. I just want to make this statement clear to everyone. This is 15 minutes of cumulative time, not continuous. We interact with the student. 2 minutes for tying a shoe, 2 minutes for helping them fix their pencil grip, 1 minute for the kid who needs their milk open, etc. This time will add up fast, especially over a couple of days, and we will have to be mindful to stay under 15 minutes with each student. The CDC website defines a close contact as being near an individual for 15 minutes who has symptoms or who is in the period of time 2 days before the onset of symptoms and continues until they meet the criteria for discontinuing home isolation. But we are wearing masks when we are close to others. The CDC website states, because the general public has not received training on proper selection and use of respiratory PPE, it cannot be certain whether respiratory PPE worn during the contact with an individual with COVID-19 infection protected them from exposure. The second part of the public comment is from Jocelyn Pagel. We are also very concerned with having to work from Jocelyn Pagel. We're also very concerned with having to work from the school building during virtual learning. You have probably all read about Miss Bird by now, but if you haven't, I will give you a quick rundown. Miss Bird did everything right in her virtual summer school she was teaching. She followed protocols, and if there was such a thing as a safe, controlled environment inside a classroom during a pandemic, her classroom was it. There were 3 teachers teaching virtual classes in a large classroom. They were in there to collaborate together and ask questions. Miss Bird had been teaching since 1982 and had such creative ideas to share with her coworkers. All of the teachers wore masks, had their temperatures checked daily, and stayed more than 6 feet apart at all times. They didn't share anything, not even a pencil. Miss Bird started feeling stuffy and contributed to a sinus infection until she was rushed to the hospital. Her oxygen was low, and she was immediately put on a ventilator. The 2 other teachers began to feel sick that same weekend. All 3 teachers had contracted the virus. Miss Bird passed the virus to her brother, who died, and her husband, who was hospitalized. Miss Bird fought for a few weeks until she couldn't anymore and succumbed to the virus. This left her superintendent asking numerous questions. What precautions did they miss? What more could they have done? He didn't have the answers. They worked so hard to protect each other, and still they couldn't control it. This is why we am worried about being required to teach in the school building. No matter what, we can't control this. This is a tale of teachers who took extreme precautions to stay safe. They trusted each other. We are unsure if we can say the same for each and every teacher in Buncombe County. We trust our teams, but we see teachers on social media posting their huge family reunion pictures, teachers who are going to hotspots, and posting images near dozens of unknown people in restaurants with strangers, etc. There have been numerous reports already from teachers at other schools in the county who are sitting with teachers at their school, are walking around and planning in classrooms together with no masks. Principals in various schools who are supposed to be supporting the protocols are some of the ones entering classrooms unmasked or setting the example that masks are not needed to walk in hallways. Our principal has been very cautious and has set a good example by ensuring she has a mask on when she speaks to us or someone enters her office. But I know based on other accounts, not all principals have the same set of standards. We understand that providing students with tools necessary to start the virtual school year would require staff members to enter the school building to assemble materials. Teachers can work with fewer people in the building to accomplish the necessary tasks in a significantly reduced amount of time, which gives us less chance of exposure. The only way for us to be considered safest from transmitting the virus is beginning the year fully remote from home until Buncombe County numbers trend below 5% over a large span of time. This comment is from Paula Dinga. Thank you, Madam Chair, board members, and Dr. Baldwin. I'm addressing you on behalf of hundreds of members of BCAE, as well as hundreds more who have responded to our surveys over the last several weeks. We first want to express appreciation for the painstaking efforts the board and the county office staff have put into preparing for multiple reentry plans. We also greatly appreciate the thoughtful deliberation that has occurred within this board, leading to the shift from Plan B hybrid model to Plan B Beyond, and abbreviated onboarding and remote instruction for the first 6 weeks for all students and staff. This allows for less contact time and potential transmission of illness while delivering quality remote instruction for which we are well known. I have been tasked with sharing with you the results of our most recent surveys, which reflect the current sentiments of a significant portion of our BCS staff. Our surveys have yielded nearly 2,500 responses and have asked a variety of questions regarding the confidence and preparedness of our colleagues. In these surveys, we learned that 74% of respondents prefer to return under Plan C, 14% of respondents preferred Plan B Beyond, 12% respondents preferred Plan B, 25% of respondents have requested a remote assignment, 18% had been denied or are still waiting to receive approval. 45% of respondents do not qualify for a remote teaching position and therefore have no choice but to return to work. When asked, how confident are you that the safety protocols will be followed and enforced at your school, with 1 being least confident and 5 being most confident, 54% responded with a 1 or 2, 77% with a 3 or lower. 60.5% of respondents do not feel safe working remotely from school buildings. We have been fielding hundreds of concerns that Plan B Beyond still requires exposure, however short-lived, to large numbers of children and staff members, which could still create an unhealthy environment, endangering students, families, and staff alike. Reports are now emerging about camps and schools that have been forced to close and have become hotspots of COVID outbreaks when students and faculty are testing positive within 1 or 2 days of opening. Even our local Asheville City schools have revealed that some of their athletes are quarantined due to illness and their programs are closing for the time being. Our survey reflects the staff members' lack of confidence in the protocols and may have called to report that their administrators and colleagues have already indicated a watered-down interpretation of what is expected and subjective enforcement of safety standards. We have lingering concerns about HVAC and mechanical systems that will be unable to circulate air efficiently and safely. Many schools lack warm running water for proper hand washing. We feel strongly that there are sufficient and compelling reasons to consider and open with Plan C until Buncombe County COVID data is trending with lower rates of illness and hospitalization. This comment is from Evelyn Cordell. If students are virtual and were not needed for any special projects, why can we not work remotely? Some districts are offering their teachers assistance to either come in or work remotely. The less people in the building, the less exposure. Thanks, Evelyn Cordell, first grade assistant, Emma Elementary. This comment is from Tate McQueen. To the Buncombe County School Board. The above links related to COVID-19 in public schools and the reality that we face is real. It is dangerous and it is unnecessary and irresponsible to increase the risk. It is that simple and it is that dire. Every year we get announcements that due to inclement weather, either impending or imminent, we are closing schools for the day. Oftentimes it is the mere threat of ice and snow that shuts down schools. We understand the idea of better safe than sorry as teachers, students, and families. It is the right thing to do. With the current plan, I am concerned that we are going to be very sorry because we are not safe. Our number one priority as teachers and staff is student safety. Our mantra of safe schools makes the decision to start with in-person environment before moving to virtual learning all the more perplexing. The pandemic is not under control. The community we serve is threatened by it in terms we have never seen before in our lifetime. We must start under Plan C. Our schools must not become super spreader centers. As we already rolled out virtual learning in the spring, the students and their families are familiar with the online facilitation of instruction. No one is going to claim that the way it manifested previously was a complete success. Far from it. However, it did provide an opportunity to learn and become better, more skilled, and it demonstrated the need for more accountability. Starting with mandatory attendance, Zoom meetings every day, and a set schedule based off of students' class schedules are all elements to ensure we deliver a quality education. History will reflect what we do in this moment. The risks are not worth the reward. Too many students and teachers will enter the building with underlying health issues that many will not even be aware of. Clearly, this virus has 1,000 faces and is unpredictable with regard to how it affects each person. We are witnessing people of all ages being sickened, suffering, and 1,000 per day on average dying from it. This virus not only creates funeral, but it leaves financial devastation for families who have people hospitalized for it. It does not claim lives alone, it obliterates life savings too. Teachers are ready for this crisis, but we are not prepared to make the ultimate unnecessary sacrifice. Teachers spent the spring implementing teaching strategies and tactics that will pay dividends this fall with heightened expectations for our students. Personally, I converted a storage building into a teaching studio with wireless access and materials so I can be successfully remotely. Other teachers have created their own teaching space and are good to go. Why are we being asked to congregate in person with students for the first 10 days? Why are we being asked to teach in empty classrooms after that? The irony is not lost on the community that we would be asked to meet in person with our students, and yet the school board meeting is being conducted online via YouTube. We get it. The board does not want to run the risk of exposure out of concern. The next comment is from Cynthia Donnelly. I'm shocked and disappointed that the school board is going against the governor's phase 2 order by bringing people back into buildings. Students and staff should not be gathering in school buildings for any reason. Clearly, you should watch the news. Every sports team and school or camp that has opened has had outbreaks of disease. How many infected of dead individuals will be enough? Even pro sports, with all of their resources, can't keep their athletes safe. How could we possibly do this in schools? If people get sick and die from being at school, the responsibility is on the BCS school board. The bottom line is all students and staff should be teaching and learning from the safety of their homes. We can add additional supports for at-risk students. We can accomplish this and keep people safe. Cynthia Donnelly. The next comment is from Julia McIntyre. To whom it may concern. I understand the BCS board is meeting today, and I would like to submit my comments for your consideration. My email concerns high school only. I have signed my daughter up for her freshman year at Nesbitt under the Plan B Beyond. I was on board with the plan until I learned there is to be a lunchtime in the classroom. The medical information we have regarding the spread of COVID-19 points toward good ventilation being key, plus, of course, wearing masks and washing hands frequently and properly. I think it's an iffy expectation that these young adults will be able to sit in the same room without moving about with masks on for at least 3 hours. One quick walk around any grocery store is evidence that even adults don't wear their masks properly and seem to think that they need to move them down constantly when talking, thus defeating the purpose of the mask in the first place. If we now add a lunch hour where the students are able to take off their masks and no doubt talk and eat, then we are increasing the risk of spreading the virus more than necessary. Taking a logical approach to the problems faced, it seems clear that we cannot please all the parents who want their kids back in school. That is simply not possible. The Plan B Beyond comes nowhere near that goal with only 2.5 days a week for 2 weeks. I see the logic to the plan, and minus the lunchtime, I think it's a good plan. However, would it not make more sense to have freshmen and or new students only participating in the Plan B Beyond with all the other students in remote-only learning? Also, to further safeguard against students and teachers being exposed to the virus from being in person, why not have them in the classroom with masks for less time and send them home for lunch? They can still be given the lunch to take home if that's the concern. Alternatively, surely a remote-only approach to all high school students will face less backlash from parents, as high school students are able to be left at home while parents go to work. I realize these are unprecedented times and no decision will please everybody. However, I think we have to acknowledge that until it is safe enough to return to a pre-COVID schedule, then no decision made will accomplish that. I also realize that I have no concept of the problems BCS is facing, and I see how hard everyone is working to navigate this problem. I was impressed at how quickly Valley Springs Middle School was able to move to some sort of online module on such a short notice earlier in the year. And I'm not concerned about the online model that's being implemented now because I know careful consideration and planning has gone into its design. That much is clear from the description I read about how it will work. All that being said, are we to wait for an outbreak before we acknowledge that that could have been avoided in the first place by going all online until the virus is contained, or at the very least minimizing the time spent with others in one room and not having students remove masks for eating? Thanks for listening and hopefully considering my comments. Julia McIntyre. This message is from Sarah Friedman. I am a special education teacher in an intensive intervention classroom in Buncombe County. I am uniquely qualified for my job and love the work I do with my students. I fully and completely comprehend the challenges of remote learning for the population I work with, as well as regular education students. However, I am begging you to reconsider the district's plan to open under Plan B and beyond and move to Plan C for a minimum of the first 9 weeks of school before assessing to in-person instruction. Being a teacher is a large fundamental part of my identity. But before I am a teacher, I am a wife, a mother, a daughter, a sister, a granddaughter, and an aunt. For the purposes of this statement, I will focus on my role as a wife and mother. I have a 4-year-old son and a 6-month-old daughter. My children are so young, and they depend on my husband and me for everything. They aren't old enough to make themselves a meal, bathe or dress themselves, or put themselves to bed at night. My husband is an essential worker, and we depend on his income to survive in addition to the disrespectful salary the state of North Carolina provides me as a teacher. My husband is out working with the public every day among people who are incredibly cavalier and insolent in the face of a pandemic and has already killed so many. Sending me back to the classroom exponentially increases our odds of exposure and premature preventable death. Even if my husband and I get COVID and just get really sick, who will care for my children? I can't ask other people to come help for fear of spreading the infection to them. We know this virus has killed younger, healthy adults, as well as the elderly and immunocompromised. The evidence is all around us. If you are a parent, hear my plea. Please don't let my babies grow up without a mother, or heaven forbid, orphan them altogether. I know it sounds hyperbolic and alarmist, but I'm terrified. There is no learning we can't make up. There is no finish line at age 18. As a teacher, I will help my students relearn and regain lost skills when they do return to me. But I can't bring students back from the dead, and I can't teach from the grave. And I'm an excellent teacher, and it would be a shame to lose me. I'm not being flippant, I'm being honest. If a teacher or student in our district dies of complications from COVID-19, will you be able to sleep at night knowing students were brought into the classroom even for a week or two prematurely when it could have been prevented with a move to full remote learning? Next comment is from Allison Grant. Please trust teachers to judge when it is important for us to work from the school buildings and when our sessions and lessons can be completed from home. I feel fully capable of and responsible for assigning work to my paraprofessionals. I agree that we need to meet at school periodically during virtual learning days in order to plan lessons, print materials, divide up materials to be sent home for remote learning, and monitor TA-led student lessons. However, we have proven to create high-quality content and activities from our homes when appropriate, allowing us to create our own schedules, allowing teachers to host live lessons from our quiet home offices, and allowing our staff with immunodeficiencies to limit their exposure to other staff members and their elementary-aged children who lack personal hygiene skills would make us feel so much more supported and safe. Please consider simply trusting us to provide the best education possible, even without being in the school buildings from 7:30 to 3:30 every day. Allow our lessons, activities, student growth, and parent accolades to speak for our success and adequacy. Thank you for listening. I pray for each of you in your decision-making. This message is from Sarah Peterson. Dear school board members, I humbly once again ask that we be allowed to work from home during remote learning. I feel that I can work more productively at home than in my tiny workspace with my 2 children. While I appreciate being allowed to bring them to my school, I feel it will be difficult for them and me and less safe. Thank you for your consideration, Sarah Peterson, school counselor. This next comment is from Kathy Bonan. Dear Madam Chair and board members, last week I watched every moment of the special called board meeting. What was unmistakable was your collective awareness of the gravity of the decision before you. I am so sorry this falls to you. I am sure you have heard this over and over, but I don't envy your position. I thank you for enacting Plan B and beyond. It is without question safer than a full Plan B. However, I have strong concerns regarding any face-to-face interactions during the first and second weeks of school. I have some questions. First, what is our goal for spread within our district? Are we aiming for 0 cases or only some cases? If our goal is 0, can we guarantee every student, teacher, staff member, and their families will be safe from exposure and infection? If our goal is for only some new cases as a result of returning to school, is that acceptable? Secondly, I haven't heard or seen anything specific about cleaning protocols and procedures, HVAC upgrades, or materials and equipment that have been put in place. When will that be sent to faculty and staff? What are our target metrics that guide decisions in opening and closing schools? What is our minimum infection rate for going completely remote? What is the safe range for conducting orientation in person? Do we have those numbers? According to Citizen Times this week, case counts have more than doubled from the first week in July to the last. July 27th, 1,473 cases, an increase of 250 from the previous week. July 20th, 1,223 cases, an increase of 325. July 13th, 898 cases, an increase of 215. July 6th, 683 cases, an increase of 111. Case counts have only risen across the county since schools first closed in March. They are not only rising, but gaining speed. July represents the worst month in the U.S. for positive tests. Case numbers are spiking across the country, and North Carolina is among the worst. We've just seen a summer camp produce a 44% infection rate among campers and staff. We are seeing terrible stories of outbreaks in schools that have been recently opened, one only 3 hours to our southwest. And we are at the very beginning of school openings nationwide. Since we are one of the earliest school systems to return to school, what will the rest of the country learn from us? Will they learn that it's okay to go back, or will we serve as a horrible warning to stay remote? Are we okay with either outcome? Thank you, Pat Bryant, for mentioning Major League Baseball in last week's meeting. An organization that has gone to great lengths to isolate and protect its investment is seeing significant outbreaks among teams. So many that baseball's commissioner warns it could have to shut down after barely 2 weeks of play. Just this week, another team has reported an outbreak with 13 players testing positive. Locally, Asheville City Schools has 4. And the next administrator will come up to read another section of comments.
This comment is from Nikki Mames. Will help the Board of Education. My husband and I, parents of a Buncombe County teacher, feel about schools opening on Monday. Parent, I was told I could opt my child out of school if I don't feel comfortable. School, yes, you can have your child learn virtually from home. After all, we care about your child's safety. Parent, I would like to opt my child out then. She is a teacher and more than willing to teach virtually from home. As parents, retired teachers, and members of the community, we feel that we have the right to express how we feel about the opening of school. Please don't tell us that it is safe because young children are not at risk of getting COVID-19, because they do get it. Although many do not get seriously ill, children can spread the disease. Students will make their teachers, other school staff members, and their parents sick. Many school employees will become sick to work, and many may die. My child lives with us. If she gets sick, she will spread it to us. If my husband and I get the virus, we may become one of the many that have died from COVID-19. We will see spread of this virus if the schools open too soon. My husband and I are very upset that the Buncombe County School Board has made the decision to open school this coming Monday. The school board is having a virtual meeting tomorrow. They are not getting together to meet in a group, yet they think it is okay to open school. Sincerely, Steve and Nikki Mames. This comment is from Katya Stoll. I have taught fourth grade for 9 years. The decision made by the school board has caused me to resign. My faith in their decision-making is causing me to resign. I don't understand it at all. I wake up anxious and I go to sleep anxious when there is no need. My heart breaks for all of the teachers and all of the students. Y'all are not looking out for anyone. I don't understand your motives. This comment is from Lauren Player. I can't imagine how busy the school board is right now and how overwhelming your decisions are, but please, for the safety of our teachers, staff, and kids, please move to Plan C. Let us all make plans with the well-being of our community at the very center of the school year. If you move to Plan C now, we have time to understand how to manage it. Bringing people back into schools has already been shown to be deadly. Thank you for your careful consideration. Lauren Player. This comment is from Julia Wharton. Dear school board members, thank you for all your thoughtful efforts throughout this challenging time, and thank you for your modifications to the Plan B reopening. I certainly didn't become a teacher to teach virtually. However, remote learning is without a doubt the safest option right now. I am a Buncombe County teacher and also a parent, so I fully understand the pressures from all sides. Many people are under extreme financial and psychological stress right now. I encourage all elected officials who have a role to play in solving those challenges to get busy innovating some solutions. In-person schooling isn't the only way to solve those problems. Some people are simply tired of the lifestyle adjustments ushered in by COVID. I hear an alarming rise of desensitization around the number of deaths we've seen in this country. As we move through August and September and another decision is required, I'm sure you will not be swayed by that trend. I read an important article in Forbes this week that cited a couple of studies that show that children who have COVID, with or without symptoms, tend to have a higher concentration of the virus cells in their nasal passages. This makes them more likely to spread the virus. While it seems pretty clear that children are much less likely to be very sick with COVID-19, they do play a part in a controlled or raging pandemic reality. I am convinced that one of the reasons North Carolina's rates stayed relatively low in the spring is that schools shut down when there was still a low number of cases. Again, thank you for being measured, responsible, problem-solving leaders. Julia Wharton. This comment is from Rachel Rodriguez. Hello. Please read my public comment below at today's board meeting. I have been diligently watching the board meetings this summer and appreciate the thought, care, and passion each of you brings to what have been the hardest decisions our community has faced. I know that you are aware of health, safety, wellness, and academic concerns, and so I will keep this comment brief. You know now that when it comes to reopening schools, there is no good answer. There is no easy solution. However, there is a moral answer, and so it should be an easy decision to make. Plan C best protects the lives of our students, staff, and families. These lives are more important than anything we could ever teach our wonderful children in person. Do not wait until COVID-19 kills someone due to schools reopening and forces you to choose Plan C. Choose Plan C now. Thank you, Rachel Rodriguez. This comment is from Chris Howell. Good morning. I wanted to address the school board in regards to the risks associated with 2 weeks of in-person learning before going to a Plan C virtual format. This approach seems to include all of the risk of Plan B for 4 hours of teacher-to-student contact. I do not agree that the risks outweigh the benefits in this situation. As of writing this email, the percentage positive in Buncombe County has risen from 4% on 7/26 to 6% on 8/3. There is clearly community spread happening at an increasing rate, and putting thousands of children and educators in schools for 2 weeks will increase this spread. Schools are not a microcosm. They are a reflection of the community, and in this instance, the community is dealing with a pandemic. To put parents, grandparents, teachers, and students at risk of debilitating side effects, weeks of intensive care, medical debt, and possible death for 4 hours of face-to-face instruction seems myopic at best and politically motivated ignorance at worst. As educators yourselves, I implore you to learn from the mistakes of places like Gwinnett County, Georgia, where 260 teachers are currently in quarantine due to exposure, or Corinth, Mississippi, where 116 teachers and students are in quarantine due to an outbreak. In Gwinnett County, students had not yet returned to the school buildings, and exposure occurred on teacher workdays. In a previously released poll taken by BCS, 50% of the 1,000 who answered reported being immunocompromised or living with someone who is. Statistics show, on average, a 2 to 3% case fatality rate when comorbidities like diabetes, high blood pressure, or obesity are involved. By your own released data, this decision to increase community spread could kill 15 people who responded to your poll and leave many others hospitalized for weeks. If that is a number you as board members can live with, then by all means continue with your current plan. If not, perhaps you should learn from others' mistakes. Best, Chris David Howell. This comment is from Abigail Hessling. Thank you so much for the hard work and hard decisions you've been making this summer. As a teacher and citizen in Buncombe County, I am very concerned about Plan B and beyond. Looking at the metrics in the county, the data tell us that being back in the building is not safe yet. As much as we all want to be back together again, we must wait until it is safe to do so. The reports and data coming out now show us that students do indeed contract and spread COVID. Schools across the country are having students test positive during the first days of being back in the building, after exposing many other students and staff members. I respect the decision you have already made to have the beginning of the school year mostly remote, but I question the decision to start the first 1 to 2 weeks in the building. Teachers are masters at being innovative and finding a way to connect and communicate with students. We will make sure to build relationships and ensure that our students can access the online platform without needing to expose them to the dangers of being in the building for hours at a time with hundreds of other people. From my experience, those 1 or 2 days that we will see each student will be spent managing behavior and teaching new expectations for mask wearing and social distancing that won't be applicable once we are remote again. We will spend so much time, money, and effort for very little reward and very high risk. I ask that you vote to have us all start remote with the option to call students in one-on-one or in small groups for the rare occasions when that is necessary. This will help keep our students, staff, and wider community safe. In addition, I ask that teachers be allowed to work from home if they desire. I appreciate that some teachers may want or need to utilize the resources school building has to offer, but for many there is no need to be in the building, and them being there just raises the risk of exposure for those who do need to be there. Our administrators can watch our classes in real time or as recordings after the fact in order to monitor and coach us as necessary. In fact, doing so remotely will be more effective, less distracting, and safer than doing so in person. Admin will be able to monitor any class they wish to from their computer screen and communicate with that teacher. Teachers will not have to worry about someone walking into their classroom while they are teaching a lesson, which would cause them to pause their lesson to put on their mask and then wear a mask while teaching virtually. We have been working with our administrators, coaches, and PLCs remotely since March and will continue to do so. If administrators need to work in person with a specific teacher, that can be handled on an individual basis. The less people that are in the building, the safer it will be for those who need to be. We are professionals that are excited to offer a rigorous and fun semester to our students, and we have the tools and ability to do so safely at home. Thank you for your time and consideration. Abigail Hessling. This comment is from Lisa VonDolan. Dear school board members and Dr. Baldwin, I can only imagine the difficulty of the decisions you have had to make regarding the beginning of the school year. It is with respect for your leadership and concern for the health and well-being of all stakeholders that I submit this email. I urge you to move to Plan C for the opening of school. The numbers of COVID in Buncombe County continue to rise. It is highly probable that the current onboarding plan will increase the spread of COVID despite the precautions put in place. As employees of BCS, we are being placed in the position to choose between our safety and our loyalty to our students, schools, and school system. I wish I had a nickel for every moment of anxiety, every conversation, every lost hour of sleep. I bet you do too. How many students and/or educators will become ill? How many will die? How many is too many? You are in a position to change your decision before you have to bear the weight of those highly likely, irreparable consequences. I respectfully urge you to vote for Plan C today. Sincerely, Lisa VonDolan. Ashley Willis. How does Governor Roy Cooper's announcement for North Carolina to remain in Phase 2 for at least 5 more weeks impact Buncombe County Schools' Plan B and beyond model? Ashley Willis. Come forward.
Jacqueline Newman. Madam Chair and honorable members, yesterday I was able to view my classes on PowerSchool and was troubled to see that out of 3 classes, only one class of 14 has numbers that seem manageable for social distancing. My other 2 classes have 26 and 24 students respectively. Even though I know these students will be divided into 2 groups, I can't envision any possible way of organizing my room to accommodate 13 students safely. This virus lives because it is easily spread to others, and I feel as though schools will become an incubator for this disease. Some students will be asymptomatic and will not develop a fever, yet will be a conduit for spreading this virus. A recent study and an interactive map of counties across the nation by the University of Texas shows that at current infection rates in Buncombe County, a school with a population of 1,000 students could statistically expect to have at least 5 students arriving already infected with COVID-19. A school with a population of 500 can statistically expect 3 students to COVID-19 on the first day. These numbers are based on Buncombe County's current community infection rates. Given the fact that many of our students also have siblings in other schools, middle and elementary, the chances that we will have outbreaks in Buncombe County are likely. So I must ask, are we playing Russian roulette with our schools, with our hospital capacity, with our healthcare workers? I understand the hardship on parents. Many teachers are parents too, but what benefit does this prolonged, sustained outbreak that we are experiencing in America give us? To date, America has had ineffective lockdowns because we've opened up before our cases of infection have dropped adequately. We are lagging behind other wealthy nations because we simply don't have the will or the federal guidance to do what is required to squelch this pandemic until a vaccine can be produced. If we open now, we are adding to the sustained outbreak and wreaking future economic prosperity. We lack patience and perseverance, 2 life qualities we try to teach our students. In Buncombe County, we are well positioned for virtual learning. Thanks to our forward-thinking Director of Technology, Barry Pace, each student has a personal device, and hotspot technology is available to students whose families cannot afford internet service. Teachers must be seen as more than society's babysitters. We have a chance to affect the progression of this disease. We need to do the right thing until society as a whole is willing to do the right thing. In my opinion, we really should be in Plan C until the virus is under control. Thank you for your time and consideration of my views. A link to the New York Times article featuring the aforementioned study is linked. Jacqueline Newman, English Department, North Buncombe High School. The next comment begins. This is from Paul Irvin, teacher and parent, Leicester, North Carolina. The expression, "what you don't have can kill you," seems appropriate as we consider the reopening of Buncombe County schools. I've been thinking a lot lately about the pandemic and the current BCS plan to reopen as it relates to myself, the level of risk, the safety of my family, and the wellness of our students and staff. To say that I'm troubled is an understatement. I spent considerable time earlier this week reviewing the latest data, both locally as well as that which is available on the CDC's website. I also carefully reviewed the CDC's guidelines for reopening, as well as a number of recent research articles. My conclusion is that it is not safe to reopen our school, even for the 2 weeks of orientation. The mere fact that school administration and the board decided it was important enough to go virtual until the end of September suggests to me that it was deemed unsafe for students and faculty to congregate, even while practicing safety protocols. In an ideal world, the protocols might be sufficient, but given my experience and practice based on 18 years of experience, I do not believe these protocols will be completely ineffective in stopping the spread of the virus. For example, imagine if a student who is unmasked for breakfast or lunch suddenly and without warning sneezes, exposing everyone else in the immediate vicinity to the virus. As I previously mentioned, I had the chance to review some of the latest research. The CDC admits that research is limited and not conclusive. Much of it is based on international studies, as the U.S. has not had the opportunity to adequately conduct its own research, as students have mostly been out of school since March. Perhaps most troubling is a recent report released by the Journal of American Medical Association 10 days ago that showed that children actually carry a higher load of virus than adults, suggesting they may actually be super spreaders. Furthermore, it's now believed that children 10 and older are just as prone as adults to transmit and contract the illness. This would put school workers and students at a much greater disadvantage in fighting off the virus. As a teacher, I want nothing more than to resume our face-to-face instruction. The value of such is clearly demonstrated and without argument. That being said, now is not the time to forge ahead. We must open schools when it is clearly and definitively safe to do so. I therefore ask that the board reconsider its previous decision and instead adopt Plan C until such time as Buncombe County metrics improve sufficiently to ensure the safety of all stakeholders. Thank you. Paul Irvin. The next comment is from Elliot Lunsford. Dr. Baldwin, Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for giving me the opportunity to voice my concerns with you. My name is Elliot Lunsford, and I've been a math teacher at Owen High for 13 years and was the 2019 Secondary Math Teacher of the Year. Last Tuesday, I demonstrated outside of this building with dozens of other teachers regarding the plan to return to learning this fall. I advocated for Buncombe County to choose Plan C, the fully remote option for this fall. I still advocate for that today. It's not too late to make this needed change. Mr. Bryan and Ms. Pate were spot on in terms of assessment of the situation and our vote against Plan B beyond. Putting children and teachers back into buildings right now is not in the best interest of our community. Neither children nor teachers are immune to COVID-19. Many students and staff are immune compromised, including my own son, who at 4 months old was diagnosed with cancer. He and his brother will be second graders this year. The safety measures are not adequate enough. Their 1 week of onboarding, coupled with my 2 weeks of onboarding, worries me considerably about the inevitability of an outbreak. I'm likewise concerned for all the families returning to school. As a math teacher, I teach my students to look at and analyze data. BCS also uses data in decision making. Should we not look at the data now? Percent of positive cases are still above 5% statewide, with an addition of nearly 2,000 new cases just today and 42 more deaths. How many hospitalizations and deaths of students or staff are acceptable to you? High school sports has been pushed back to September, and even the UConn football season has been canceled for the year, and yet we are pushing forward full steam ahead with opening our schools. Professional athletes and those in our government are tested regularly, but not teachers and students who must wait days for results, potentially spreading the virus in the meantime. We do not want to go backwards with the virus. I implore you to make the change to Plan C. Before my time is up, I would like to mention 2 more concerns. First, I ask that the board allow educators to work from home during the remote learning period, allowing for more safety. We are professionals and can be trusted to perform our duties to a high standard and even from home. Second, I ask that the board not opt to give any standardized tests this year that are not mandated by the state or federal government. Testing should not be our priority, and the results would be invalid and unhelpful at this time. Thank you. I appreciate you reading this. Elliot Lunsford. The next comment is from Ashley Masters. What are working parents supposed to do about childcare? Kids that are school-aged and children that are under the age of 5. I would first like to thank the school board and Buncombe County school officials for their adjustment to Plan B at the emergency meeting last week. The decision to implement a mostly remote learning plan made it evident that the concerns of staff and families in the community were heard and respected. Today, you are offering another opportunity for community members, staff, parents, and many others to voice their concerns and opinions, and for that, I thank you as well. I decided to share my comment with you all today from the perspective of both the Buncombe County school teacher and a community member. This has been a very challenging time for us all and has provided us with the opportunity to make decisions each day, decisions that may impact others more than we know. My husband and I made the decision early on that we would be taking the most extreme precautions no matter what individuals around us chose to do. We made this decision because he works in the medical field and we wanted his patients to be protected, but we also wanted our families and friends to be protected as well. This meant making sacrifices, saying no to things, shifting our paradigm. Even as Phase 2 began, we chose to stay home. We are not caring for high-risk family members, and we do not have children with immune deficiencies, as many of our colleagues do, but we wanted to be as careful as possible, and we still do. Although there are many research safety precautions in place, ones that my husband implements daily in his clinic, we are still learning many things about this virus. We can also not guarantee the safety precautions other individuals chose to take, as is evident by the consistent number of cases Buncombe County has seen. As much as I've missed my students and teaching them the way all know is best in person, there is no absolute guarantee that we will all be safe from contracting or spreading the virus. I spent the last 5 months making sacrifices to ensure the safety of others, and now I'm being asked to ease up on those precautions at a time when our cases have not consistently decreased. I know it is very important to you all that students and teachers are safe, and the safest scenario for now is home. Starting the year with all students remotely can be done successfully and, most importantly, safely. The decisions that have been made will never be the right decisions for everyone, but it seems to me a safe decision can be made for everyone, and that is to let us stay home a little longer. As a teacher, I know staying home would remove the weight of concern with contracting and spreading the virus and allow for complete attention on the most important concern, helping my students grow and supporting them socially and emotionally. Please choose the safest opinion and let us show you what we can do. Thank you, Alexa Shanklin, third grade teacher, Estes Elementary. The next comment is from Liza Storis. As a parent and community member, I have grave concerns about the plans to reopen schools. Our children and teachers should not be part of some ill-begotten experiment. Major League Baseball could not prevent an outbreak amongst healthy adults, even though they spent millions of dollars, maintained an isolation bubble, and tested every single person daily. We don't stand a chance. Georgia had a student test positive on the second day of school, sending students and teachers into quarantine. Reopening for 1 to 2 weeks unfairly puts our students and staff on the front lines of this pandemic. Teachers with documented underlying conditions are still being required to teach remotely from the school building without being given any explanations. What need is there to force teachers to come into the building and risk exposure when they can teach from the safety of their homes? This action shows complete disregard for the professionals the board continuously praises but does nothing to support. How many board members and district office employees are currently working remotely? They deserve our utmost admiration. If we lose our teachers, those kind-hearted people who have dedicated their lives to our children, if we toss them aside, the whole system crumbles. If you truly value the homes in your districts, keep the schools closed and allow teachers to work from home. Again, this is from Liza Storis. The next comment is from Nicole Killian. My name is Nicole Killian, and I'm a school counselor at Irwin High School. Just about every day, there's at least one news report of staff and or students testing positive for COVID-19. Even in our community, Asheville City Schools has reported cases of COVID amongst student athletes. When someone in a BCS is test positive, what will be the procedure? Will that school close for X amount of days? Will everyone in the building be tested? Thank you. And I hope that this county will be transparent and thorough as we are required to be in the building. Keeping this community safe and healthy must be our #1 priority. Nicole Killian, school counselor, Clyde Irwin High School. This comment is from Allison Grant. Buncombe County School Board. Thank you for hearing our concerns and for advocating for our students. I will try to keep this brief, and I recognize this difficult position that you are in. I even find myself agreeing with various contradictory points because there is no best case answer for all parties involved. I want to keep my comments and questions in the category of special education classes and severe disability populations. I teach students 1st through 4th grade with severe cognitive and/or medical disabilities. My students would not and will not survive this virus. Unfortunately, many of the families are planning to send them in during orientation. Following a summer break, where I'm sure many staff members have not practiced social distancing, we will return to the classrooms with 2 to 4 adults in each room. We will greet students with significant medical diagnoses and be required to physically touch them to achieve any academic activities. Hand-over-hand prompting is common. To feed them orally, to change their feeding tubes, to change their diapers, and to keep them safe and distanced during moments of behavioral crisis. Our students will not be required to wear masks because it is not developmentally appropriate or physically possible to maintain the expectation for the school day. We will then send them home, go home to our families, and return the next day to another group of students. I would like to think that we are receiving proper PPE, but I have been buying my students baby wipes to clean them after diaper changes for years. I worry PPE won't be in the budget. On our hallway alone, if one person or child has been exposed to the virus before August the 17th, we could put over 20 student lives at severe risk. I fully acknowledge that our students are not able to complete independent virtual or remote learning activities, and they will require full adult support at home to make academic progress, but it does not seem worth the significant risk of student death. We have learned to adapt lessons, become certified in virtual teaching platforms, and spent weeks making take-home content. Please require that students in the medically fragile category begin this school year virtually. Teachers are willing to sacrifice the time we spend each evening and many weekends working, the money we spend to purchase materials, clothes, food, sensory items, etc. for our students, and much more. But how can we be willing to risk a student's life amidst a national pandemic? I'm also concerned about teacher safety and the safety of our loved ones, but I know this topic has been brought to your attention. I appreciate your willingness to hear our voices. Please keep our students safe. They're our world. Again, this comment is from Allison Grant. The next comment is from Doug Trimbach, Buncombe County School Board. My name is Doug Trimbach, and I have a wife working in the BCS as well as a daughter attending preschool in BCS. As we've seen over the last few months, mask wearing plays an unparalleled role in reducing the spread of COVID-19 when indoors. We've also seen an extraordinary number of people refusing to wear a mask, whether mandated or not, here in Asheville and in the country as a whole. How will you enforce this mask mandate in schools for all building occupants? My biggest concern today is that my family would be affected by other people's failure or refusal to follow this simple and demonstrably effective rule. I'd also like to say that most of us acknowledge the extreme difficult position the board, administration, and other community leaders are in. Please continue to make decisions based on the best science and the advice of public health officials. Thank you, Douglas Trimbach. The next comment is from Chris Wells. I will not waste 3 minutes speaking to you about the data, the research, the knowns, and the unknowns that indicate opening school buildings to students and or staff at this time is to underestimate the potential risk. I'm sure you've heard enough. COVID, however dangerous, spotlights the effects of decades of policies that do not make people, actual human beings, a priority. In fact, the policies created to deal with the virus itself are failing to keep people safe. International comparisons make this evident. We fail to address this real public health crisis, and somehow we expect opening school buildings should be safe. We want to return to normal, but as a public school teacher, I can tell you that normal got us where we are. Many people who are suffering right now were suffering before this pandemic, not from some fault of their own, but from policy decisions that undermine the public. That is the real crisis. We have for decades accepted policies that prioritize wealth accumulation while treating people as if they are the problem. What we've been learning as we watch teachers leave the profession at high rates or burn out altogether is that public schools don't work well with the public itself is under attack. In fact, the attack on public schools is also an attack on the public, and right now this feels like an attack. There is no right reason when other policies fail to serve public health. We want better. We deserve better. No, you shouldn't open schools under these conditions. Instead, I ask you as elected officials to publicly demand better policies, not for our schools, employees, and students, but the public we serve. This virus begs a commitment to principles of inclusive democracy and participation, both to improve working conditions and to promote policies that center and uplift people and communities. We can't change the nature of the virus, but we can create better policies around it. For now, before schools are opened, recommend new policies from local, state, and federal officials, including more testing and tracing, safe vaccinations, and expansions of unemployment to include immigrant families. Ask legislatures and the governor to address evictions and denial of utilities. Lobby for pay increases for food service and custodial staff in schools. Go further, examine the connections between these policies and historic forms of marginalization, such as anti-black racism, xenophobia, and socioeconomic class, and then make changes within our schools. There is so much you can do before opening schools. Thank you for your time and consideration. Chris Wells. The next public comment is from Catherine Golier. Dear board members, thank you for the opportunity to express my concerns about face-to-face contact this school year. I am highly concerned for the well-being and safety of teachers and staff being forced to participate in the face-to-face contacts against their better judgment. Governor Cooper announced yesterday that Phase 2 will be extended for another 5 weeks. How is it unsafe to open these establishments but safe for us to have contact with students? Guidelines suggest face-to-face contact for only about 10 minutes. Teachers will have contact for about 8 hours daily. We will have morning duties, lunch duties, after-school duties, bus duties, and cover classes for absent teachers, as well as our required instructional duties. That is a lot of exposure. Schools are not designed to meet the CDC recommended guidelines. Social distancing will be tough to control. Parents had the choice of not allowing their students to attend the face-to-face sessions due to health or safety concerns. Teachers are not being offered the same choice. We have to have documentation to be able to opt out. What about our concerns for our own safety and well-being and the well-being of our loved ones? We have no way of knowing where our students have been or who they have been around. So many have traveled out of this region to other locations, including hotspots. My family has taken the necessary precautions for 6 months to keep us safe and out of harm's way. I'm concerned that all of that will be canceled out due to those who will not comply with the policies or guidelines. How will we get students to wear masks and social distance when we have never been able to get them to comply with the dress code? This comment is from Catherine Golier, social studies teacher at Clyde A. Irwin High School.
At this time, we will move to the action part. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a general reference. I'm taking notes, and we've talked a lot about highly vulnerable student populations. With a system our size, we also know we have some highly vulnerable faculty and staff. And I say highly vulnerable in terms of health and medical issues. And these fall under the American Disabilities Act. These fall under the discretion of this school board and what we should be providing for those employers as support. I do want to make the board aware of and remind all of our faculty and staff a number of conversations have already taken place between principals and employees to review potential accommodations to address these very serious health issues. And I would also say that the scope of these medical issues have been extended from our standpoint for discussion to include not only the employee, but family members that are living within their home. I think there was reference to a child with immune deficiency. Once again, I want to encourage any staff member that has special health or medical considerations to speak directly to their principal or supervisor. Likewise, I'm going to repeat that reminder to all of our administrators and supervisors that they need to continue to communicate that outreach because, again, we recognize there are very legitimate medical and health issues, and we want those addressed. And the only way to address them, because of the highly confidential manner and guidelines that fall under that, under HIPAA regulations, that needs to be a very confidential discussion between the principal, supervisor, and the employee. So I want to encourage from both sides that those continue to take place. Thank you for allowing me to make that comment.
Thank you, Dr. Baldwin. The next item on the agenda is the action agenda. First item is the 2020-2021 4042 capital outlay budget revision. Do any members of the board have questions for Ms. Thorpe? Do you have comments you want to make? Okay, it seems that our board members have reviewed your document and are ready to make a motion to approve these revisions to the 4042 capital outlay budget for 2020 and 2021. Could I get a motion to that effect?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
And so we are voting Peggy Buchanan. Aye. Pat Bryant.
Aye.
Amy Churchill.
Aye.
Cindy McMahon.
Aye.
Donna Pate.
Aye.
Max Queen.
Aye.
And Franklin. Motion passes. The next item on the action agenda is the sewer easement request for Overlook Road. Board members have questions about this issue? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve this subject to attorney review and grant a temporary construction easement and a permanent sewer maintenance agreement for the W&C Bridge Foundation initially and MSD upon completion and acceptance that the owner will pay for all the related costs for this construction, filing surveys attorney fees for both parties. Could I get a motion to approve this?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I believe there was a second in that. And we are now voting. Peggy Buchanan?
Aye.
Pat Bryant?
Aye.
Amy Churchill?
Aye.
Cindy McMahon?
Aye.
Donna Pate?
Aye.
Max Queen?
Aye.
And Ann Franklin. Motion passes. The next item on the action agenda is Avery's Creek Elementary School roofing project. We're looking, the motion would approve the change order. Are there questions from board members? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to authorize execution of a change order to AAR of North Carolina Incorporated in the amount of $105,000 to re-roof the main gym roof and an accessory roof at Avery's Creek Elementary School. Could I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. I believe that was a motion and a second. Thank you. And so we are voting. Peggy Buchanan.
Aye.
Pat Bryant.
Aye.
Amy Churchill.
Aye.
Cindy McMahon.
Aye.
Donna Pate.
Aye.
Max Queen.
Aye.
Ann Franklin. The next items on the agenda for the approval are new policies, and we are waiving the first reading and the adoption of these policies. It's policy 1710, 4020, and 7230, discrimination and harassment prohibited by federal law. Policy 7020, 4030, and 7235, Title IX, non-discrimination on the basis of sex. Policy 1725, 4036, and 7236, Title IX, sexual harassment, prohibited conduct and reporting process. Policy 7025, 4035, and 7236R, Title IX, sexual harassment and definitions. Policy 1726, 4036, 7237, Title IX, sexual harassment and grievance process. Policy 4329 and 7311, bullying and harassment behavior prohibited. Policy 7232, discrimination and harassment in the workplace. I need a motion to waive the first reading and adopt these new policies as listed in accordance with the newly enacted Title IX statutes. Could I get a motion, please?
I move that we waive the first reading and approve these policies, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Could I get a second?
Second.
And we will vote. Peggy Buchanan.
Aye.
Pat Bryant.
Aye.
Amy Churchill.
Aye.
Cindy McMahon.
Aye.
Donna Pate.
Aye.
Max Queen.
Aye.
Ann Franklin. Motion passes. At this time, we will entertain a motion to rescind policies that were already enacted in Buncombe County. So the policy 1710, 4021, and 7230, which is the prohibition against discrimination, harassment, and bullying, and policy 1720, 4015, and 7225, discrimination, harassment, and bullying complaint procedures. I need a motion to rescind these policies.
So moved.
Thank you. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. And you're voting. Peggy Buchanan.
Aye.
Pat Bryant.
Aye.
Amy Churchill.
Aye.
Cindy McMahon.
Aye.
Donna Pate.
Aye.
Max Queen.
Aye.
Ann Franklin. Now it's time for the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have the minutes from June 4, 2020, regular meeting, open session. Minutes for June 30, special call meeting, open session. Minutes July 2nd, 2020, special call meeting, open session. Minutes July 28, 2020, special call meeting, open session. Minutes July 28, 2020, special called meeting, open session. The personnel report with the addendum and advisory council members for 2020 and 2021. I need a motion to approve consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
We are voting. Peggy Buchanan,
Aye.
Pat Bryant,
Aye.
Amy Churchill,
Aye.
Cindy McMahon,
Aye.
Donna Pate,
Aye.
Max Queen,
Aye.
and Ann Franklin. Motion passes. Are there other comments from the board?
Madam Chair, I would just like to echo comments made by Dr. Baldwin regarding the opportunity for employees who have situations, excuse me, I'll take this off.
Thank you.
Employees having situations that put them at higher risk or concerns about returning into the classroom, that those accommodations are available. And I think there have been several town hall meetings whereby that has been discussed and mentioned, and it's certainly been shared with the principals and hopefully communicated. But I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that. We don't want to do anything that would put anyone ill at ease in coming back. And certainly I also want to remind parents that there's still an option if they choose to do so, if they're uncomfortable, that they can go with all distant learning for the entire semester if that would be their choice. And so I think that we need to look at that as well and remind folks that those options are there. And the final thing I would say is when the board took its action, we've all explored all of the data and looked at it from very thoroughly and had input from the state health department and from our local health department as well. And I think in looking at that, the other thing that I wanted to mention is that the report and recommendation that came to this board was the culmination of months-long effort by I would say probably hundreds of people, cross-section of our Buncombe County schools, as well as community members, other business leaders, government people, et cetera, that have had input into that. And when they came back with the recommendation to us, we had probably the largest majority of those folks that were serving on those committees were professional educators. So we were listening to their work and what their recommendation was. And I think that needs to be mentioned as well. So with that said, that's all my comments.
Thank you. Any other comments from board members? At this time, I would entertain, our next meeting is on September 10, and we'll have work session updates and closed session beginning at 4 in the Bowcatcher room, and opening session will begin at 5:30 here in the Minotaurium. This time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. We're voting. Peggy Buchanan.
Aye.
Pat Bryant.
Aye.
Amy Churchill.
Aye.
Cindy McMahon.
Aye.
Donna Pate.
Aye.
Max Queen.
Aye.
Ann Franklin. Motion passes. Thank you very much.